the first starting point in our little debate would be, how do we define De Beers? What is it today? How do you describe the company when people ask you?
Well, I mean, I think it's still clearly the steward of the industry. I think it's unquestionable. There's not a whole lot of industries that are, it's essentially it's an oligopoly. And then I think, with the sanctions on Russia and Alrosa, it's become even, more pertinent, its role in the larger industry. And I think, when you look at where we are today, I think the lack of clarity around De Beers' future is actually it's a problem, for the larger industry. I think you just look like investors don't like uncertainty, and I think just on a different industry. But if we look at software stocks right now, I mean, these major software companies that just generate a ton of cash flow and they continue to grow, even they've grown to these huge sizes. No one really knows what the impact of AI is going to be on them, and they're getting crushed. Like some of these big companies are down 30, 40, 50, 60% in the last like 2-3 weeks because people came to the realization that we just don't know what the future is going to be. And it's not going to happen tomorrow or maybe even next year. But when you value a company or an industry, you're looking longer term. You need a terminal value. What's it going to look like 10 years out, 15 years out? And so with software stocks right now, we just don't know what that future is going to be, and it creates major investor hesitancy. And I think we're seeing that with the diamond industry right now, where players in the supply chain are maybe hesitant to make big capital investments because we aren't exactly sure what De Beers is going to look like 6 months, 1 year from now. Will it be in stable footing with an owner that's willing to invest the capital to kind of maintain the demand for natural diamonds, and until there's some clarity around that, I think the industry is going to again continue to be hesitant with investments, and I think that's that kind of I think makes it clear how important the company is. I mean, it's definitely the most important company in the industry. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But then, like, what is it? Is it a mining company or is it a brand? That's what I struggle with when I think about if I had to buy De Beers and then consider what the company will be in 20, 30 years time. That for me is the fundamental question. How do I look at it today? Is the majority of my revenue is coming from the mining rough sales side of the business, but the name recognition is so strong, and I'm not overly confident in the future of rough of the rough business. Maybe I'm just throwing it out there. So how do you define it? Is it a luxury brand? Is it a miner, or is it both?
Yeah. So I was just going to say, when people in the that are mining investors ask me about the industry, it's the one thing that there's a lack of understanding around is that diamonds are a product where you have to mine them, you have to supply them, and then you also have to create the demand. If you're a copper producer, which is where De Beers' parent Anglo is moving more towards, you don't need to drive demand for copper. It's going to be a Chinese infrastructure project, or the new Green Deal in the U.S. It's going to be the AI cloud build out. You need copper for all these for all these build outs. But with diamonds, it's like you have to supply the product and you have to create the demand, and that's what makes it so unique. And I think that's why De Beers' vertical structure is so integral to what it is. And I don't see how that's going to change, because because even when you look at like the rest of the supply chain, it's like the midstream doesn't really promote the product. The downstream promotes it. I mean, LVMH, Richemont, Cartier, Tiffany, its subsidiaries, they spend a tremendous amount of marketing, but they're marketing the brand first and foremost, not necessarily natural diamond. So I think I don't think that's changed, and I think that's where the industry really needs to kind of figure out the path ahead. And I think that's why there's all these ideas around the Luanda Accord and, the NDC and, how do we kind of, jointly share this marketing burden, because I think everybody at this point understands that marketing is such a pertinent part of this. And I think with De Beers, for them to focus on, building a brand or, building the De Beers London Jeweler entity. I mean, I think I understand why there is, desire to do that, but it's, at a time where there's just limited resources, it seems like maybe that wouldn't be, a top priority. I think for me, if I was running the business, I mean, I think building a luxury brand takes a very, very long time. It requires a lot of money. And at the end of the day, I think people know what De Beers is and that the brand has some value, but it's not, in my mind, comparable to, Cartier or Tiffany or Van Cleef. I mean, I think to get to that point, you have to, just, spend tons of money year over year over year. And then you get to the point where you really kind of have that high-end luxury brand legacy.